All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jordan Bishop. I'm the Executive Director of the Wyoming Interfaith Network. I hope everybody's doing well and is in good health. Thank you for joining us today. We have a very special guest, Bishop Karen Oliveto, the Bishop of the Mountain Sky Conference of the United Methodist Church. Bishop, it's really good to have you. It's good to meet you, first of all, and it's good to have you with me today. How are you and your family doing right now?
First, thank you for having me, Jordan. It's great to be with you. We're doing okay. We're doing okay. My mom died in the midst of all of this, and so the sheltering in place and not being able to attend to her estate and affairs and be with my sisters has been tough. At the same time, needing to help a whole annual conference deal with COVID-19. So we're hanging in, but we're doing okay.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. That's you have a chance to really understand what a lot of people are going through right now across the country and across the world, for sure. Well, I live in Laramie, as I mentioned before we started. I'm on the vestry at our local Episcopal church here, the St. Matthew's, and as you know, we'd have a lot of meetings and really tough decisions that we've been having to make. Regarding like online worship, having to close our physical sanctuary. I call it a physical sanctuary.
Thank you. I'm glad you make that distinction.
Right. And just, it's been really hard being with that lack of physical community with people that we really care deeply about. And at the same time, we know that these are decisions that are really important and we have to make them for the safety of our congregants. So I wanted to ask you, how have you seen churches move forward and really connect with people during this time when coming together just isn't a possibility?
Well, I so appreciated that you made the distinction from physical distance. I am struck that, while there's this whole talk about reopening churches haven't been closed. The buildings have been, but actually I've seen more engaged ministry, greater evangelism, and greater pastoral care than I have seen throughout my entire almost 40-year career. So I think it's been difficult. Our pastors and laity had to turn on a dime when suddenly, this wave of COVID-19 washed upon us and literally shut down things. But to see people learn new skills, to see people connect, knowing that what's so vital in our faith communities is community. And so how do we replace that? And how that's been online, knocking on doors and talking between, giving the social distancing, picking up the phone and checking in on people, providing groceries. It's the church at its best, really.
Right. So there's some challenges that, obviously the church is going through challenges right now, and finding those ways to connect and to be creative, whether that's, virtual worship or phone trees or whatever. I've heard of a lot of really creative ideas over the last couple of months, some better than others. But what challenges do you think still lie ahead as we slowly, at least here in Wyoming, I think the governor just said on June 1st, we're going to start allowing people of up to 250 or more gather outside. So that's just a step of reopening, and it's yet to be seen how successful that will be. But what challenges are still ahead for churches in particular as we continue to kind of navigate this pandemic era?
I think the big thing is how to integrate what we've learned. We will never go back to what was. I mean, we are changed people. We've experienced so much trauma, so much grief. We've had a full disruption, but that allows us to do a reset on what church is. And as we look at what it means to inch back to have more in-person gathering, I think what's critical is church is going to look and feel a lot different. And we've got to prepare ourselves for that. We engage in some of the riskiest behaviors in terms of COVID-19. We sing, we touch, we hug each other. We're very physical. We pass the peace. We pass plates. We share communion. Potlucks. I don't know about Episcopalians, but potlucks are pretty sacramental for United Methodists.
Oh yeah.
And we can't do any of that. Not only that, we're outside. We have 250, and I'm not sure. I can't remember the exact Wyoming. Is it still under 10? Groups of under 10 can gather in a building?
I believe that's still the case. I'm not.
And who knows by the time you air this.
Right.
But that means that we have to turn people away. No, we've reached our limit. People over 65 who are often the bulk of our population are still meant to shelter in place. I think the challenge is, what's our theology of church? And how do we practice that? If we believe that church is, we are commissioned by Jesus to go to the margins and build ministry from there, it means we don't just open our buildings. It means we sit with the most vulnerable and build our ministry from there. And to me, that's the greatest opportunity for us and the greatest lessons that I think are in this moment that God is offering us. So I think that, those are some of the things I see as challenges, because our natural thing, we're so hungry for community. Mm-hmm. In fact, I heard one of the pastors, a pastor of our largest United Methodist church, had drive-in worship. He said, I have this huge campus. I can do drive-in worship. But the minute people pulled up and saw their friends, what did they do? Oh. They leapt out of their cars. They hugged. We all need that human contact. And it's exactly what we can't do right now if we're going to continue to move beyond this time of pandemic.
Yeah, I think that's something that I've noticed. I mean, I am an extrovert to the fullest. I'm an Enneagram 7. I'm very much like people person, get energy from other people. So I don't necessarily learned that about myself through this, but I guess I didn't realize how deeply those roots were for me personally, and just how much we all really need each other. And so as we mentioned before, it's like, I've been having to find alternative ways and healthy ways of connecting, whether that's with other people or with nature. So,
and and I think that connection, we're seeing how anxiety is high, depression is high, and I think it's up to the church to figure out how can we continue to find new ways of community. So, like in my conference, we started a Facebook page called Mountain Sky Campfire, where people post their music and we cheer each other on. We every now and then have an all conference potluck. And because we have a lot of people who are eating alone for months now. And 5:30, we say, pull up your plate. We're going to have a potluck. And we usually have a short devotion or talk. And then we do small group work. So people are, but those are things that people are hungry for, and that the church has an opportunity to respond to.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's cool. I haven't heard of that idea, the virtual potluck. I really like that. So one thing that I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe I've seen the Mountain Sky Conference kind of promote, but I really like the idea of MLK Jr.'s his idea of a beloved community that is like a society that's based off of peace and justice, equal opportunity, among other things. Going forward, how can the church help foster this community? The term that's kind of thrown around a lot is creating like a better new normal. Is we don't want to necessarily go back to how things were, because for so many people, how things were in the past weren't working. So how can the church help usher in a quote unquote better new normal, or a beloved?
We talked before you started recording about, getting outside and hiking and walking. And I've been so struck that, in my walks, seeing families riding bikes together, seeing families walking together, seeing families have picnics together, seeing people socially distanced, but sitting in the middle of a park and just laughing together. This has caused us a full stop in our lives. And I think you're right. What we were doing wasn't working. We were scheduled into overdrive. We were working around the clock. Our children were scheduled full time. And I think we're learning that that wasn't healthy for the families. It wasn't helpful for individuals. And I think the church can continue to provide the spiritual grounding. What does it mean to engage in regular Sabbath? What does it mean? God rested. What does rest look like for us? What does it mean to care for our families more deeply? Because our families were incredibly disconnected prior to this. And so those are some I think some things the church should be exploring as we move back into a fuller rhythm. How can we help maintain a balance, a spiritual balance, a physical balance, and an emotional balance?
Yeah, that's beautiful. I personally hope for a greater sense of gratefulness. You know, I know when we do eventually are able to get back together and worship together and be in community, physical community together, that we don't take it for granted as much as we used to. And even going to like a live concert, which I love live music.
Gosh, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah, this so that's one thing, you know, I can only relate to myself, but yeah, is a better sense of gratefulness. I'm already starting to feel that. Grateful for being outdoors, grateful for what I have, grateful for having a job and an income. So
right. And how has this time of full stop impacted the earth? Right. I mean, we saw the ozone layer start to heal. We saw, in different parts of the country, there were blue skies where there were never blue skies. People are planting gardens. So this can be a time of communal healing, and that's a part of living into beloved community.
Right. So we're just about to wrap up our conversation here. I always ask my guests on this little project that I'm doing, what is something that is giving you hope and strength during this tough time, especially for you, as you mentioned, with your mother and with not being able to gather, and what's giving you hope and strength right now?
Well, you know what has really provided me a lot of strength is, I don't know if you saw that blog post by a cloistered nun at the start of COVID-19. Mm-hmm. She said, let me teach you what it's like to shelter in place. And she talked about how life as a cloistered nun isn't just prayer, scripture, and work. It's prayer, it's scripture, it's work, it's play, it's music, it's being with community, it's cooking, and there's a balanced life as you live into what Eugene Peterson translated, the unforced rhythm of grace. And so at the start of all of this, I looked at my day and saw where I was working and saw where I wasn't, and I drew some really clear boundaries and said, you know what, I haven't done my music in years. I'm going to do my music. I finally have time to visit with friends. And even though I can't physically be with them, I'm going to set up some times to visit with friends. I'm going to make sure that after my morning devotion, I work out. And it has enabled me to be better grounded in God's unforced rhythm of grace. And I'm very grateful. And it's helped as I, navigate my mom's death. It was really unexpected. It just drawing strength from what that nun taught me and my own spiritual practices as they've grown in this time.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. And I think that's good advice for people to take stock and to reevaluate how they're spending their time and be more thoughtful and conscious with that. That's really great. Well, Bishop, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate your time and your wisdom. It's great to finally meet you and just to be able to chat for just a few minutes.
Same here, Jordan. Thank you. This has been great to meet you, and I hope we can talk again.
Absolutely. We'll do it soon. Take
Great.
care.